In this video, we're going to take a brief look here at John 7, and I'm going to really begin here by focusing, first of all, on verses 14 through 24, and then we'll end up to John 7, verse 31. So I'll read the verses here first. So starting in John 7, verse 14, about the middle of the festival, Jesus went up into the temple and began to teach. The Jews were astonished at it, saying, "How does this man have such learning, when he has never been taught?" Then Jesus answered them, "My teaching is not mine, but his who sent me. Anyone who resolves to do the will of God will know whether the teaching is from God or whether I am speaking on my own. Those who speak on their own seek their own glory, but the one who seeks the glory of him who sent him is true, and there is nothing false in him. Did Moses give you the law? Yet none of you keeps the law. Why are you looking for an opportunity to kill me?" The crowd answered, "You have a demon. Who is trying to kill you?" Jesus answered them, "I performed one work, and all of you are astonished. Moses gave you circumcision." It is, of course, not from Moses, but from the patriarchs. "And you circumcise a man on the Sabbath. If a man receives circumcision on the Sabbath, in order that the law of Moses may not be broken, are you angry with me because I healed a man's whole body on the Sabbath? Do not judge by appearances, but judge with right judgment." All right, a couple things quickly to observe here. We got intro into the temple in verse 14. What the author probably means is the temple courtyard, not the temple itself. So in the temple courtyard is where this conversation is taking place. So Herod had helped to expand the courtyard to enlarge the temple complex, creating this massive area. And so it's in this area in which you would have found the different merchants selling the different items, but you would also have people who are preaching and teaching, and so there's engagements going on. We're talking about the temple itself. This is probably not where such a conversation would take place. Like in the Synoptic Gospels, Jesus' depth of knowledge without training strikes the Jews, or the Jewish authorities here, as astonishing. And so, of course, we have the famous story in Luke's Gospel where Jesus is just 12 and he's, in the temple area, and the experts are amazed at his understanding. So here, this is something we have again. Jesus seems to possess a knowledge, and yet it's known or recognized that he doesn't have the kind of education that people who should possess such knowledge would have taken. Jesus stressed in verses 16 through 18 that his authority comes from being the revealer of God's teaching, which is recognized as such by those who seek God's will, for he seeks only God's glory. In verse 19, Jesus accuses the Jewish authorities of disobeying God's will when they seek to kill him. So this hostility between Jesus and Jewish authorities continues to escalate. The crowd responds by accusing Jesus of being a demon possessed. This is a very interesting accusation that Jesus is possessed of a demon. We do find in later rabbinic sources that such a thought or concept continued to be perpetuated. You find even in Mark's gospel that Jesus' own family thought he was kind of out of his mind. There's other accusations in the Synoptic Gospels about Jesus being possessed by Beelzebub, or practicing his exorcisms by the power of Beelzebub. And so this claim of being a demon is an interesting one, especially if we think about what Jews might have thought of as demons. Demons in particular are spiritual beings that are associated with idolatry. That is, the daimonions are gods who are associated with idol worship. And to claim that Jesus is possessed by a daimonion is to suggest something that Jesus is trying to mislead Jews to align more with the gods of the of the Gentiles. And this would be a very serious accusation because that would try to associate Jesus with idolatry. So, this is part of the escalation of the tension between Jesus and the authorities. Jesus responds by defending his Sabbath healing. So, going back here to the healing that had occurred here of a invalid individual as lawful and commanding right judgment. So we're accustomed to seeing Jesus in conflicts over Sabbath observance. I think it's important to stress that Jesus never taught or understood his actions as demonstrating or showing that the Sabbath laws were over, that they were now, eliminated. Jesus understands these actions as permissible under the Sabbath laws. The Sabbath laws are still in effect and still should be observed by Jews, and that his actions corresponds to how God would intend the Sabbath to be utilized. The intent of the Sabbath was not to harm individuals or not to allow individuals to receive good things, and yet that's what some of Jesus' opponents are attempting to keep Jesus from doing something that would be good or helpful, even if it occurs in the Sabbath. All right, we'll take a look now at verses 25 through 31. So I'll read the verses here. Now some of the people of Jerusalem were saying, "Is not this the man whom they are trying to kill? And here he is, speaking openly, but they say nothing to him. Can it be that the authorities really know that this is the Messiah? Yet we know where this man is from. But when the Messiah comes, no one will know where he is from." Then Jesus cried out as he was teaching the temple, "You know me, and you know where I am from. I have not come on my own, but the one who sent me is true, and you do not know him. I know him, because I am from him, and he sent me." Then they tried to arrest him, but no one laid hands on him, because his hour had not yet come. Yet many in the crowd believed in him and were saying, "When the Messiah comes, will he do more signs than this man has done?" All right, a couple of interesting things in these verses. Verse 25 appears to contradict verse 20 because some in Jerusalem do not think that the authorities are seeking to kill Jesus. So earlier, they think this is what is happening, but now they don't seem to think it. So it's kind of odd. There seems to be a tension here. And so sometimes scholars on John will think or suggest that the reason for this is where the author has stitched different traditions together and has not sought to smooth out or eliminate potential conflicts or tensions. The authorities' reluctance to arrest Jesus then is seen as possibly confirming his identity as the Christ, or that these authorities think of him as the Christ. But these people believe that Jesus can't be the Christ since they know where he comes from. And the Messiah origin is supposed to be unknown. Now, this is really kind of a curious thing here in verse 27 about the unknown, because people have oftentimes thought about, well, isn't the Messiah supposed to be associated with Bethlehem? And this is how Matthew and Luke's gospel presents Jesus as from Bethlehem, or at least has a birth in Bethlehem. But of course, everybody knows Jesus grows up or association with Nazareth. And so this tradition that seems to be associated here in John, that Messiah's province, where he comes from, is mysterious. Now, I'm not sure exactly where this tradition originates from. In other words, where do we have in any biblical text or any non-biblical Jewish text where the idea of the Messiah's origin is supposed to be unknown? So this is an issue for some discussion and speculation and research, but this seems to be one of the traditions that the author of John's Gospel is aware of, that the Jewish authorities or the crowds that he is presenting seems to rely on. Of course, all of this is playing off the larger idea in John's Gospel about where Jesus is from. There's a misunderstanding if you think Jesus is from Nazareth. That's not where he's from. He is from heaven. And the fact is that these people don't recognize this. They think they know where he is from. But what they think they know is inaccurate. Verse 28a is interesting. Of course, in the Greek, we don't have punctuation marks, and so translators have to make decisions about whether or not they think it's a question or not. Looking again more closely here at verse 28, he says, "You know me, and you know where I am from. I have not come on. The one who sent me is true, and you do not know him." So the question is, should the statement be read as should the sentence be read as a sentence, as might occur in some translations, or should it be read as a question? You know me, and you know me. Let's just look here again. You know me, and you know where I'm from. So in other words, should it really be, do you know me, and do you know where I'm from? So the question then is, which way should this be read? Is Jesus asking them a question, or is Jesus making a statement about their lack of knowledge? All right, so then in verse 30, while the authorities do try to arrest Jesus, it does not happen because his hour has not yet come. And so concept of hour in John's Gospel is important. It really refers to his hour of crucifixion, his hour of glorification. And so that time has not yet arrived, and so that is why they are kind of prevented, as it were, from doing anything. And finally, some people expect the Messiah to do signs. So this too is an interesting thing. What kind of signs do they think the Messiah will perform? You have some expectations of a Davidic Messiah who, defeats Israel's enemies. But, is that the kind of sign that this person is a Messiah? So where are the traditions that we can find of a Messiah figure, performing different types of miracles, because Jesus is doing these healings? But generally, for a Davidic Messiah, I'm not aware that there was much expectation that Jews had that a Davidic Messiah, kind of a kingly Messiah, is supposed to be accompanied with healing miracles. Now, of course, there is a sense of a healing that takes place if Israel is being occupied by foreign powers. They are ill. They need restoration. And if they are released from that oppression, that subjugation, then a healing has taken place. So kind of symbolically, metaphorically, we have this idea of healing. But to actually perform physical healings on the sick, that is not a common association with a Davidic Messiah. All right, that takes us to verse 31. We'll leave it at that, and in the next video, we'll pick up with a few more verses out of John 7.